What's up? I'm going to break down the fundamental problems with our economy and how to fix them. Bet you can't guess what I'm going to say. It's Georgism. Ready? Let's go. Imagine we're pioneers, three of us going to an undiscovered continent, or Mars, or wherever. We're going to settle new land. And when we get there, we want to find the most valuable locations. Places rich in resources, somewhere to grow food, perhaps natural ports, or areas along rivers for food and transportation. When we arrive, there's plenty. For illustration, let's say there are three prime spots: the port, the mine, and the farm. Each location will yield about $100,000 in income. We claim and put these locations to use. Me, you, and Jim are living in a wonderful society. One of us farms, another mines ore, and the other ships it away to be sold. People hear of our success and they also want in. When our first citizen arrives, he has a decision to make, critical to understanding this all. All of the best locations have already been claimed by us, so he has two options. He can choose to work for one of us, or he can choose a spot with the next best opportunity, which we will say yields $50,000. This number effectively sets wages for all workers in the new colony because no one will take a job paying less than they could get working for themselves. It also makes prime spots valuable because they are more productive than anything available and workers are willing to work for less than the output. A $60,000 wage that produces $100,000 in value means the landowner collects $40,000 for simply being the first to settle the area and hold the land title. This is known as economic rent. As more and more people move into the area, the next most valuable location continues to provide less and less value. It's farther away from the urban centers. It's not fertile. It has no natural resources or innate useful utility until the prevailing wage goes down all the way to the value that the least productive location can provide. And ultimately, after all land is claimed, the prevailing wage goes as low as possible, as the only choice for labor is to take the job or starve. Likewise, landowners are able to pay the prevailing wage and capture the difference between the wage and the location value of their land as economic rent. The example was simple, but shows the fundamental mechanism by which landowners are able to cash in on the value generated by a growing community, and why even modern society feels as though we have immense progress plagued by immense poverty. The solution to this, as I said before, is called Georgism. Simply, it's the idea that economic rent I described is actually value developed by the community and therefore should be used for the benefit of the community. It is the key to economic justice. Welcome to part 2, Who benefits from innovation and how do wages naturally rise? Remember the colony from the previous video? It was filled with workers unable to bargain for more than the bare minimum because all land was claimed, and landowners who took the difference between the productivity of labor and actual wages as economic rent. Well, good news, everyone. A worker has invented a new drill to reach deeper ore in tougher rock. This labor-saving tool will surely be a boon to the economy, ushering in a new wave of prosperity and wealth. First, the old mine increases in yield, becoming more valuable as an asset to the colony. Next, the colonists realize that some low-quality farm plots near the mine can now be used to extract ore, raising their output. The workers' position is unchanged. All land is claimed and they can still only choose between working and starving. The landowners end up pocketing the increased productivity. Well, not all land is claimed. There are more plots available. They were just too poor to be economically useful. No one will work for less than $10,000, so no one could be bothered. A worker realizes these plots can support a higher wage thanks to the new drill. She claims one, which signals there's an alternative to subsistence wages. Workers actually have a good bargaining chip. Landowners must pay at least as good as the free land or lose hands. All labor in the colony benefits, and it seems the new invention has made everyone better off. But when more settlers come for the open land, the ability to bargain is lost and wages return to the minimum $10,000. Landlords again capture all the increased output. New inventions open up land and temporarily raise wages, but But over the long term, landowners absorb production increases, and the only way to raise workers' share of wages is to ensure they always have the ability to refuse landowners' lowball offers. Georgism has an answer for this as well. Welcome. What is the land worth, and how much are people willing to pay for something that is essential but has no production cost? Let's find out. Many years have passed in our colony, and Jim decides it's time to retire. He looks at his fields and thinks, anyone would be lucky to have this. It's still the best, most fertile farm in the colony, and so decides to sell and retire to a cottage in the mountains. But no one has ever sold land in the colony before, so Jim has to figure out what to charge. He knows his plot is more productive than any land or job available by at least 90,000 and has been for the last 40 years. Jim realizes the next owner is buying an advantage over most of the colony, so the price should reflect that. Jim is trying to get the present value of the future flow of wealth from owning the farm. This is known as economic capitalization. It's easy to calculate 40 years of ownership brought Jim $3.6 million, but knowing how much the land is worth right now means discovering how much someone would be willing to pay to gain access to the farm's revenue stream. To determine this, we need to know how quickly money grows if it was invested elsewhere. The only thing you can do in the colony other than hide money under the bed is to buy bonds in the shipping line that sells the grain and ore overseas. These pay a flat 5%, so as the only alternative investment, this sets the capitalization rate. The present value for the land is economic rent divided by the capitalization rate. Price equals R over CR. With rent at 90,000 and a capitalization rate at 5%, the stock value of Jim's land comes to $1.8 million. Jim might consider that to be a fair price, but a buyer might need more reason to buy the land instead of the already available bonds. To justify handing over the cash, she might require a higher capitalization rate than offered by the bonds, which would mean a lower selling price. However, if there is no hurry to sell the farm, Jim might also attach to the price a speculative premium. Market price equals rental value over capitalization rate plus speculative premium. This is an additional premium if the owner thinks the location has great potential or simply isn't very motivated to sell. Of course, Jim owns his farm debt-free, and watching the workers scurry brings joy, so he lists the property at $2 million. With heels kicked up, Jim waits for a buyer. However, if you've been following the colony, you might remember the prevailing wage is only $10,000. This price is beyond the means of an average laborer, and a possible buyer could only be another landlord. If there was only another way to fix this, keep watching and we'll get to it. What's the easiest and surest way to make money? Our colonists are about to find out in part 4 of Game of Rent. Many years have passed, and some young citizens will never be able to afford their own land, and can only look forward to a life of low, stagnant wages, so they decide to seek their fortune in a new frontier. Sarah, Tim, and Leroy pack up and set off. Amazingly, they're able to find a spot just like the one their forefathers founded, a fertile field by a mine and a port. What luck! This time, armed with the lessons learned from the first colony, they've unlocked a new talent: land speculation. The gang sets up shop, the same process happens. Land is claimed, wages go down as the utility of the next best available land is lower each time, until eventually all land is claimed and wages are as low as people are willing to accept. Because our settlers have seen this show before, they claimed more land than they could actually work. Let's take a look at how this impacts the production of our colony compared to the original one. As you can see, by holding land out of use, total production in the colony is lower, but the proportion that is captured by landlords is actually greater. The colony creates less wealth and has more inequality. That doesn't make any sense. Who wants society to be less productive overall? As we saw in the last episode, as the colony grows, these lots will become valuable and fetch market prices based on the capitalization rate plus a speculative premium, which can be even greater when fewer pieces of property are available for use. If we use the same capitalization rate of 5%, then these lots held vacant and out of use can be put on the market for a base total of $1,400,000. Don't forget the speculative premium. Seems pretty dire, huh? We'll come back for part 5 and we'll see if we can figure out a way to make things even worse. Welcome to part 5. There's nothing that can't be achieved when citizens work together to pool their resources and knowledge, but how does this affect the game of rent and those who play it? Let's find out. The colony has grown to its natural limit and the landowners are doing well. Workers who came for the promise of good jobs are not as happy, but at least they aren't starving. Miners break their backs to bring ore down from the hills, manhandling heavy carts over muddy, rocky, uneven ground. They tell the landlord that things would go much faster if they could pave a road down to the docks. He agrees, but only until seeing how much it would cost. Every day, miners pass by farmers dragging sacks of grain. They also could use a road, so the idea gets around the colony that they could go in together on a public good that benefits all. Since the road is for everyone, they decide everyone should help fund it, so a tax is collected from all residents. The road is surfaced and the effects are immediate. Workers are able to get to work safer and more quickly, loads are delivered to the docks more efficiently, shifts are more productive, output increases. It seems like the investment really pays off. And it does, for some. With longer and more efficient shifts, all land reached by the road increases in productivity. The bargaining power of workers is still as bad as before, so this increase capitalizes into rent, just as technological innovations did. Notice a vacant lot also went up in value thanks to the road. In fact, if we compare the amount landowners paid in taxes to fund the road to the amount they receive in rental increases, we see they actually represented a wonderful gift by their own workers. Wait a minute! What kind of world is this, and how do we fix it? Hello, and welcome to part 6 of A Tale of Land and Rent. Taxes for public spending find their way into higher land values, but is there a better way to pay for public goods? Let's find out. Now, the colonists are happy with their shiny new road. The investment eased the work, increased output, and gave a windfall to property owners whose land lay along the road's path. Some landowners on the edge of town noticed what happened when the road went by, and they got ideas about the unclaimed land just beyond the colony's borders. They claim with just a little investment, the worthless land will bring jobs, grow the colony, create wealth, and make everyone better off. So the collection plate is taken up again. This time, a worker named Hank speaks up. From our perspective, the last road just jacked up rent and made it harder to buy land. Why don't we use the increased productivity to pay for it? The landowners are taken aback. How would that even work? A loan or bond will build the road, and we service the debt by collecting the increased rental value. That way, the only people who really benefit from the road pay for it. Hank's a convincing guy, so they go along. The road is extended out into the wilderness. The properties along the way become more productive. Jobs and output increase, but not the price of land. When the payment for the construction bond is assessed on the landholder, the increased flow of rent doesn't capitalize into the selling price. The idle lot held out of use speculatively also has to start paying for the road, even if the owner isn't doing anything with it. The colony has the road and all the attendant benefits, but not the parasites. What would happen if we took this lesson further?